Welcome to Das Geek. We are back by popular demand with Chad from Gods and Nemesis, and we are here to finish out the slime creature. We're going to do some real animation this time. If you remember the last video, we're just showing you how you can get some stuff moving more for inanimate objects like trees and that type of stuff. But this video, this is it. We're going to start creating armatures and things like that, and we're going to start making this thing come alive. So it's because of you guys that Chad is back. It took us a little time to get him back because he's been working on a brand new engine. You're looking at going to Unreal now.
Yeah, it's turning out really cool. I love a lot of the features that it has. But when I released my game on through Torque, everything was really nice and everything. But there's certain people are having problems because the engine hasn't been updated for a while, at least the version that I have. So I made a decision to have more access to more platforms to release the game, and also to just have more abilities that are up to date to go ahead and start porting it over to Unreal. So
how's the transition been from Torque to Unreal?
it's a huge learning curve, just like with anything. But I think what I have seen so far is, like, for instance, the materials. I mean, making the various textures, like what we were doing. It's just there are so many options that you have at your fingertips. It's amazing.
So for people starting out who may have been playing with these videos, abandon Torque or maybe just look at Unreal, is it that much of a difference? Can what you learn in the Torque world work for the Unreal world as well?
Well, every engine has its own unique way. I wish there was just a import my game button, but unfortunately, because every engine does what they do so differently, it's a learning curve every time. But I think, in all honesty, the reason I went with Torque at first was to show that you can do everything for free using only free software and things like that. But the engine is now 7 years old, and so it's becoming dated. And with Unreal, you can download it for free and make your game. I believe that the stipulation is that after the first 3,000 sales of whatever game you have created, then you owe them 5% per game. So I think, to me personally, I think it just makes more sense overall. But every engine has the good and bad that goes along with it. If you were to make your game with Torque, it's 100% free. You don't have to owe anybody anything. So I just feel that because so much time has gone by and there's been so few updates, that it's time to move on to a different engine. And it's actually has opened up a world of all kinds of unique programs that I'm starting to mess with as well. So it's a nice fresh start. So
Blender, though, everything you've learned in Blender still works with Unreal.
It does.
So everything you've done within Blender or that we've done in these videos would work with any engine. Well, I don't know any, but at least would work with Torque or Unreal.
That's right. Before we exported this file, if you remember from last time, as a collada. With Unreal, for instance, you would export it as an FBX, and that would be the difference. And really, there's very few differences between the two engines in that regard, except for the file that it exported as. So
Torque's still good. It's still a good engine for maybe simpler games, but you took on a pretty tough project for your first game, being completely 3D, having open-world, RPG elements, all of that. And so if you're doing something very advanced, then maybe you want to look at some other engines other than Torque. A lot of the engines have come out with this free to download, free to use, free to make your game type portfolio, but you have to give them money once you make a certain amount of money yourself, which is a very fair deal, I think, at the end of the day. They've done an incredible amount of work coding all of this, and they're really giving everybody a platform. Now, companies like Torque really could have kickstarted that whole thing. I don't know the industry, but that's why it's important with the competition that companies come in like Torque and offer this kind of open source platform, and that kind of forced others to start looking at ways that they can make their product more accessible as more and more people are getting into gaming. So overall, no matter what, it's a good thing. And I know Gods and Nemesis has got a lot of good reviews, but some of the bad ones were all based on couldn't get it running, couldn't get it started. Right. A lot of that's driver-based, not having the latest and greatest support for different types of hardware, and that can make your customers very frustrated, and that can be frustrating for the person, especially if you're not a big studio that can't afford a bunch of people just coding all the patches and fixes and having all the examples. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's get into this here. So just as a consideration, you may want to check out Unreal Engine as well, but we're going to finish out the series in Torque. And I guess you're going to add some armatures and stuff here. So.
Yeah, so last time I showed you how to do a primitive animation, which is, you can use it for various things. I have used it for a floating crystal in my game, and it's just a repeating animation, and it's just fine for that. I have used it for floating rocks because I have certain floating rocks. The world has unique alien materials that allows for repulsion and things like that, similar to magnetism, which is important for how the storyline goes. So I've used this type of animation, as you've seen in the last video before, but this type of animation I'm going to show you today is the most extensively used one. And this is going to be the most important one. It's more difficult to set up, and there's a lot more work involved, but overall, it's really important to learn it. With Unreal, it's the same thing. I use this animation style that I'm going to show you that uses armatures to manipulate the vertices individually. So, and it forms groups in order to actually manipulate that. So it will make more sense when I go over it. In the meantime, I have this version that has the animation. You see the animation down here. And it was just a simple animation. As you notice, it went up. I'm going backwards actually, but it went up and fell back down. So that was to simulate some type of attack or something like that. But what we want to do is I'm going to save this as a different file, and I'm going to call this slime creature movement. Let's save this as root. When you're making animations in this style, you have to have a root animation. So that's what we're going to do currently. And usually your root animation is one where your character is breathing. So with the slime creature, I'm going to try to make it look like a jelly type of movement. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to make first a root animation, and I'm going to delete out all the animations I had prior.
All that work gone. Don't do it. Oh man.
All right, so we're good.
Evil.
It was.
Now it's dead again.
It is. So what do we do with this? How do we get this to, let's go into first edit mode, all these vertices to respond individualistically. Well, we got to create an armature. So what I do is I go into the side profile. This is going to be the front of the slime. You see where my cursor is. And when it imports, that is the front of the slime. It's hard to tell with something that doesn't really have much definition to it. This is just a simple creature that we have created. But we want to go ahead and snap the cursor to the center. You notice my cursor went into the center. I'm going to go to the top view. It's an absolute center, and that's important. Now I'm going to hit the space bar, and I'm going to type in add arm. If I can spell right, armature. And it should have added it. Let me go ahead and check that out. So I put the slime into wire mode, and that's this area here. You can select the various modes. We had it at well, no, it wasn't that. It was material, and we're going to put it in wireframe, so I can see now I can see the bone. See, that's the individual bone.
So when you added that armature, that's what it added right there.
That's right.
So that thing wasn't there. If you put this Blender picture into wireframe before, you would not have seen that paradigm-looking thing or whatever it is there, right?
Right. So okay. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to pull it down on the Z-axis by hitting the Z.
And by the way, our budget was back approved, so now you can see on the left-hand corner all the keys he's hitting are over there on the screencast on the left. Cost millions of dollars to add that feature, and millions.
It did. So you should be very thankful. All right. So you're probably thinking, what in the world is this? Well, let me show you. So on the side here, we have the entire armature, and it will eventually start filling out with the bones that we're going to add. This individual bone is the root bone, and if you move this when we're done, it should move the entire creature with it. So I'm going to call this pelvis. Okay.
A slime creature doesn't have a pelvis.
You want to use the same name conventions for the bones, regardless of what type of creature you have. And the reason being is that you can maybe steal other animations from other creatures that might still work with the creature.
Yep. Steal like an artist.
So as you make animations, then you might be able to reuse some of those. Thinking, well, I'm going to leave it in the center. So what I need is a bunch of arms coming out, and they're going to control individual vertices on it, so I can make it kind of wobble while it's sitting there. Instead of a breathing animation, I want kind of like a liquid-like effect, like it's moving. And we added that texture, it kind of gave it a liquid effect, but I think the movement of the vertices individually will really add to it. So now with the individual bone selected, we're going to go into edit mode.
All right, so what we had to do is change the gradient of the background to a different color because the cursor was kind of getting lost in the background. So I'm not sure what caused that, but in any case, we have this high contrast blue here so you can see the gray cursor.
Notice that at the armature you can select either side. So you want the pointy side. We're going to hit E for extrude. All right. And then we're going to select this bone. So this, I'm going to consider that the back. Okay. So I'm just going to call that bone back. Remember, up on the top here, you can go to the armature. We want the bone, and we want to name these individually. So in the end, when we make all these bones, we're going to be able to actually, it's going to make separate groups for the bones. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm trying to keep the bones in the naming convention similar to a human, so that I might be able to take other animations from other creatures later on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if the bones are completely named differently, then it won't work. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull that one down by hitting the grab key. And I'm going to, let's move this over here. Go ahead, and that's the pelvis. Let's grab this. Well, actually, probably more right here. I'm going to put legs in there too.
Got a long pelvis.
All right.
How else are slime creatures supposed to reproduce? Good times. Good times.
Whoa. Let's go ahead and extrude another one. And we're going to call this neck.
What is it, a giraffe?
It's looking kind of silly, I realize that, but now here's a weird one, as if it hasn't been weird so far. And this is, see, that was the neck. This, well, not yet, hold on. We'll make that the head, if I can type right. And I'm going to create another one, out like this, straight out. And this is where we can attach an invisible weapon. And it sounds a little strange, but as the creature is moving around, you want it to be able to cast from that point. And you can do that within Torque. And it can cast an X amount of feet in front of it in the game world and determine if it hit a character or not.
So you could have an area effect spell. You wouldn't need to necessarily attach it to that. But if you want something more direct attack, you would want something out there. What did you call that?
Mount 0. That's all you need. And now we're going to go to the top. This is kind of hard to see. I'm not sure what had happened here. I've never seen this type of issue before, but I'm sure we can figure it out later on. But for the sake of the video, we'll keep on going. Hopefully you guys can see it pretty well. I'm going to try to even these out a little bit more to the center. You want this in the center as best as possible. And let's even this out. Kind of hard for me to even see, but there we go. Now, which one was this? This is back. So that's back. Let's rename this one spine. There we go. Without caps. And now I'm going to add some legs. So I'm going to go to, which one was this? Back. Let's start it from here, from the back. We're just going to extrude outward. We're going to call this, and now this is important for if you have any type of bones going off to the side for limbs. Now I'm going to use these bones to try to move various parts, almost like it's not going to have legs like a normal human being, but it's still going to be important to have a certain naming convention. So this is going to be the left side of the slime. I'm going to call it L underscore leg. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to select the middle portion again, extrude again, and you guessed it, this is going to be the right leg. All right. And I'm going to keep this quite simple. With a normal mesh, if a humanoid, you would have all kinds of bones, including fingers, maybe.
How many bones are like in your dragon creature you have created?
There were quite a few because I don't remember exactly. There was a lot more than usual because it had wings. And the more bone segments you have, the more control you have on each individual part. And because of that, and I also included the bones for the fingers, so it has the ability to move each individual finger appropriately. It has specialized parts for the sides of its mouth and things like that. So there was quite a few. I would say that it had probably about 50 bones by the time I was done.
Wow. So we've done, in essence, only about 10.
Right. So we'll extrude this way. We're going to call that right underscore arm. And extrude, if I can speak right, this way. And that is left. And there we are.
This is nowhere near as intimidating as it seems now watching somebody do it for me, but just watching it, you would think this would be so much more complex to create the skeletal creatures. You hear about so many people talking about that being so tough, but it's more tedious than tough.
It is, but you also have weight paints, which I'll go over briefly as well, to smooth some of the movements. And that would become more important for probably not the slime creature, this simplistic slime creature that we have, but it will be very important for the movement to get the feeling that the muscles are working together. So gotcha. Blender's going to attempt, and I'm going to show you this, we're going to attach this armature now to the slime creature. So I just selected, I went into object mode, I selected the entire armature. Look what happens. It's not connected to the slime creature at all. But I formed it inside of whatever creature I was, whatever creature it is. In this case, the slime creature, of course. You want to form the bones and get a viewpoint and various angles of where those bones are and try to get them as straight as possible. That's why I put my cursor at the very center of the creature before I started. So that gives me a pretty good straight area to work on. So you want these bones as straight as possible, and also try to keep it within the mesh, inside of the mesh, as if it was a bone. So hence their name. So I'm going to select the armature, and I can't remember which one you select first, but you hold down Shift and you select whatever object you're going to mount the armature to, and we're going to hit Control P. Okay, so I had that backwards, I think. So we select the slime creature first, and then we select the armature. Now we get our options. Okay. So now we have all these options. Now you'll notice that there's empty groups, and as I told you, all these bones are going to create individual groups, and Blender's going to try to match the bones to the section that they would probably control for you. And it does an extremely good job to do for this, but with the slime creature, it might have problems because obviously it wasn't designed for slime creatures, but we'll do our best. We can make adjustments later. And when you have unique creatures like this, you'll have to, do various things like weight painting and things like that to get it right and redistribute the vertex groups that are going to be connected. So Control P again. I didn't select anything. I always select automatic weights. So I'll also try to weight paint it for you. And that, again, allows it to each muscle to kind of, or each part to kind of smoothly work with all the other parts as best as possible. You want it to try
to paint you, so then you're just editing. You're not having to go and create all those yourself, basically.
Right. So we'll try that. Now the whole entire mesh moves. Okay. Now we're going to go into and see what Blender had done. Go into pose mode, and I'm going to rotate, and notice that the mesh moves with that. Actually, Blender did, so far, it looks like it did pretty good. So as I select each bone.
That's cool. Can you go into the material view to see
Oh,
it
yeah.
visibly in the material?
Let's see. I don't know because it's so hard to see ever since that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to select inside the creature. Let's go ahead and go out and rotate.
Nice.
So there we go.
I want to eat you.
I want to eat you.
The animation technology is incredible, man.
Let's see what the arms did. Oh, in this case, the leg. Whatever, it doesn't matter. This is a slime creature. It's not really normal. So I got some movement. This is exactly what I wanted. So I can move this as we're gonna do an animation pretty soon, and so I'm seeing that this is already going to work for us.
Nice. And in essence of time, you may mess around with this a lot more if you were making this on your own, but for video purposes, you're going to kind of just leave it as is and move into the animation part, or do we have to do some adjustments here?
This should be totally fine. I wanted to show you the weight paint section real quick. So so you select your object first, and then you go into weight paint. And notice how it painted for us, depending on, I got to show you this first. So on the side, remember when I said that each bone is going to create their own groups when we parented the two together? And that's these groups. They're called vertex groups. So each bone received its own vertex group. And so when you're on the side here under data object, okay. I never remember the names. I've just used the symbols for so long, I don't even know what the names are. But whatever, this little triangle symbol here, as I select each one and move around, you'll see that Blender had attempted to weight paint for you. And the darker the red color goes from blue, which means no effect at all, to green, yellow, and red. Red being having the most effect. So you can go in and go in here and go ahead and paint. Notice I can paint that on and have more effect if I needed to.
So if you move that particular right arm, it's now going to have more of an effect over the rest of the body versus right now where it's just having an effect on the right.
Right. So we select the left arm and it kind of mimicked the other side very nicely. Did the same with the right. I mean, it did an awesome job.
Makes total sense.
It has. I mean, how would the creators of Blender know that I was going to create a slime creature and then weight paint it appropriately for me? It's just brilliant, really, and it did an excellent job.
Well, they heard the DOS Geek channel was doing a video on Blender, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, the billions we're gonna make!" Something like that.
Oh, here's the pelvis. Now the pelvis.
Now, if this was me, the pelvis would control everything, but for the slime creature.
Well, actually, that's true. The pelvis is supposed to control everything, and let me show you that.
Yeah, see?
So let's go back into wireframe.
So it's a male slime creature, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back into pose mode and select that pelvis he was talking about. And notice it has full control over the entire object, no matter what. That's the root bone, and the root bone should have an entire effect on the entire thing. So each other bone, on the other hand, gets to affect only a certain part. So there you go. So that's what I wanted to show you with the weight painting. Now we need to go in and the timeline. And remember last time, it's the similar thing as last time when we were animating the slime creature in the more primitive way. Now we get to actually edit this in a way to where we can control each.
Make it more fluent.
Right. You have a lot more control.
Instead of just swinging back and forth.
So for the purpose of this root animation, which is the breathing animation, when the AI is not doing anything, you want a subtle animation. So it doesn't look like a stagnant statue sitting there waiting for a command, and then maybe you go up to it and it's supposed to attack you, and then suddenly it moves. So you might want to be able to see it just slightly move, or breathe. So you want subtlety. You don't want something that is over the top, typically, because it's going to constantly repeat this. So if you have a character and you spend all this time, he's cocking his gun and checking it out, he's going to do that over and over and over again. And it's cool the first 20 times, and then you're like, man, this is really getting...
So if you're going to do that, you're going to have to keep creating different triggers and different animations so that it doesn't look stupid.
Right.
Or you could just have somebody kind of, what you see in most games is the bad guys kind of sitting there, maybe breathing, maybe they're smoking a cigarette or doing something, waiting for a different call of action, like you get close enough, they see you or something else to trigger another animation, right?
That's right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some movements. Now this is going to be a little bit over the top. It's not going to be subtle because for the purpose of the the tutorial here, I want for you to really see the animation working. But just keep in mind, generally the root animation is going to be very subtle, just a slight breathing or something like that before an actual real movement has been established. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move those arms. So I'm going to select this, and then you have to go all the way up to the top. And notice you have rotation and scale. Okay. So I selected which one was that? That's the left, of course, the left leg. So I'm going to hover over this and make sure that you're on frame 0. So down here, or frame 1 is fine. And I'm going to end this probably at 80 frames for everything. And that's fine. So we start here. I'm going to hover over rotation and hit the I key and scale. Okay. And do this for every bone you plan on moving for this particular animation. In this case, it's going to be the legs. I know it's hard to see. I'm sorry about that. We're not totally sure what happened there. And let me move this a little bit and see. Maybe I can move that one as well, just a tiny bit. And yeah, I like that. Okay, I'll choose.
Now, what's I doing? It's putting it into memory or something? That
Right.
You selected all
So
of
you
those?
see down here with the animation, it put a yellow line.
Okay, and those are everything you've selected. Okay.
Right. So we go back to the dope sheet. Notice all the.
It actually put them all in there. Nice.
So it has all the movements, and that's frame 1. So you're going to start off not moving anything, but you want to select every bone that you plan on moving, and hit the I key over all the possible movements on the transform.
Now, you would save all of your different animations. So we're going to do a breathing animation here, but next, if we did a fighting one, you might save that as slime.fight. And then within Torque itself, you're going to call those based on different actions.
Absolutely. That's how exactly
so you
it
just
works.
keep creating more and more animations, the more sophisticated you want the character to be. But the root is resting. What you're calling the root is the resting animation.
Right. So we're going to go over to, notice I went into the animation section. I'm going to move over to about 20 frames. All right. And I'm going to start moving bones. So I'm going to move this one over about like that. I want this thing to be really weird looking when it's moving all its stuff around, all its gelatinous body. So you can just go around and start moving things.
Now, if you hadn't selected a bone, but you're moving it here, will it do anything?
No.
Nothing. Okay.
So that's why you have to give them a starting position. So I'm going to move that out a little bit, and we'll see what kind of effect we get. So it also involves a lot of artistry.
Now, can you stretch here? Can you stretch the bones?
I can, and I'll show you how you do that. Let me go ahead and all the bones that I moved, I think that's good enough. Yeah, I already moved that one. And this one, we'll do that one too. Go ahead and select each bone. What did you do? Each bone, and go ahead and hit the I key for their new movement at frame 20. There we are. Yeah, so now these will turn yellow to let you know that you had entered a keyframe. All right, so we have that basic movement. Now, you asked that can you separate or make the bone stretch out? You can, but you have to separate the bone because normally they're pivoted as if they're socketed. Okay. So we can go back into object mode, go into edit mode, and let's say we want probably this one. We'll go ahead and disconnect this one from being socketed or parented to this bone here. So what bone is that? The head or spine from the head. So you go on.
Decapitated.
Yeah. All right. So all you have to do is go to the bone section up on the top. So you go to the bone section, And here you just simply click that. Now you probably have to click
Now
in.
it's not connected.
Yep. So now I can click into the scene and it should update then. And we'll go back into pose mode. And now I can grab that bone and it separates.
So now, that would be a cool crawling ability, right? Now it looks
Yeah.
like it's almost moving forward.
Let's go ahead and keep that. So we're moving all that forward. And we'll go ahead and just press I over it again. It'll reestablish it.
Love it.
So now we have that. So let's go into material. That's fine. And let's go back down here and move frame by frame. So that's the movement we have so far.
It's not much, but it's getting there. I can see the vision.
All right. So yeah, it's very subtle. It's a lot more subtle than what it seemed like. It's kind of odd, but let's go up to frame 40.
Now, if you did a bunch of frames in between, you could make it a lot less subtle, but it's obviously going to take a lot more time and outside of this video's purpose. But you could go in and do 5 frames in between, for instance, and start making more and more movements and make it more advanced and aggressive if you want.
Absolutely, and that's the key is to find out what is going to work. So that requires experimentation. And I'm going to put this back to wireframe, and let's go ahead and do a couple more quick movements. Maybe something weird like that. We'll go crazy. We'll do something crazy.
You're going crazy. What's wrong with you? Are you nuts?
Yeah. You should have been able to figure that out by now. All right.
Nice.
And let's move him like this. He's just wild right now.
He's a wild and crazy slime.
He doesn't.
He's out drinking all night. He's nuts.
Yeah, so he's just full of bubbly. All right, so let's go ahead and hit the I key for every bone that we manipulated.
And the eye is just making a keyframe, right?
That's right. But don't forget to move to the next frame that you plan on.
Otherwise, you're just going over the same one.
Right. That would not be cool.
Waste all that time.
All right, which I have done many times, so just being honest. So we have a little bit more movement. It's not what I would want, but for the sake of this tutorial, I think you get the idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the very top here. And remember, that was the very beginning of the animation. We're going to hit Shift D, and we're going to drag it over to 60. I said we're going to do 40 frames, but it looks like it's going to be 60. So he'll return back to his original, should have.
Original state and then move out again.
Yeah, somehow I didn't get that.
That's kind of cool. Looks good.
Okay, yeah.
Let's run with it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and save our work and file export Collada to our, where we have that.
Under Documents, and then Tor 3D, Shapes, Monsters. The monsters!
Export. Let's see what we got. Now we're going to open up Tor.
Man.
The proof will be in the pudding. All right.
Drag that over.
And let's go ahead and go into World Editor. We were at the desert before, so we'll just go ahead and go there. Okay, so that was our original slime.
It's a little bouncy. It's more,
Yeah.
What was that? It's more like flubber. This is flubber, man.
So I'm just going to, that's what it looks like, really. So I'm just going to go into the meshes, art, monsters, and our new, I'm used to Unreal now where you just drag it and we'll just double click it and notice it's moving. I'm going to put them down a little bit.
Yeah, put 'em on the ground.
And it's not as fluid as I would want, and it's not subtle, but for the purpose of this tutorial, you can see that it's constantly moving.
Yeah, that's
Now-
awesome.
Now, the beauty about this
That
is
is
that
so
now
cool.
I have control over this animation. I can turn it on, I can turn it off through script, and I can merge it with other animations in the editor. So we're at stage 1. Now we can make attack animations, we can make jump animations, whatever would work probably better for a slime. So I'm not sure if it jumped in. Well, maybe if it jumped at you and attacked you, but I can make protrusions of slime come out for the attack I had planned and all kinds of crazy things. So
that is so neat seeing it actually come alive. And what's cool about being in this tutorial from the beginning video to now is you've been able to kind of really build a creature that at first was completely static and bland and imported into Torque. Then our next video, you actually got to add some textures and make the creature look like what you're trying to make it look like, as far as reshaping it and putting the right texture on it. And then our third video, we started showing you some really simple animations, but at least showing you some ways you can control items very simply. And now we have our first resting animation, which obviously if we had longer time in videos, we would do more frames and make it even more. But this is good enough. This is pretty cool. I mean, this is really starting to look like a slime monster you'd go attack in a game. More like with a sword, probably not a gun, but hey, you can merge flavors. Why not? So this is awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it's not looking too bad, but I think that obviously as an artist, you need to go in and tweak things and make it a lot smoother than that. Notice how it jolts. I didn't quite capture the first frame somehow, so something's wrong. I'd have to go back and see which part of his movement is not being brought back to the normal, at the very beginning. So you would have to do things like that. That's just part of doing
frames
this.
In between and that type of
right.
stuff. You can see Chad's a little bit of a perfectionist. He's already thinking of ways to incorporate this and make it better. But I think it's very cool. I like the flubber in the background still. That's hilarious.
They're very happy slimes.
Yeah, that one's very happy. That one's a little bit crazy. All right, so thank you very much, Chad, for coming back and finishing this series. Now, maybe in the future, since you're moving to the Unreal Engine, you'd be willing to do some videos on Unreal coming up if people would be interested. So leave your love and comments below. Let us know some things you want to see that maybe we didn't cover in the series. We did all of this in Linux. And poor Chad, he had to go through like 6 different flavors of Linux just to show, if you look back in the videos, that each week I was switching Linux flavors and reinstalling Torque and reinstalling Blender. And it always works. There's been no issues outside of very minor things or differences between using this or game development in Linux and game development in Windows, say. So that's really what the purpose of this tutorial was to show, is to get you excited about game creation and showing it can absolutely be done in Linux. That's how powerful Linux is. It's not just a tool that all the enterprises and big companies use, but it's also a great tool for individual artists and creators and developers and content creators like you. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Leave your comments below, and until next time, get out there and fill your brains!
Don't get subscribed. Does not like the video.